The original additional aliens were transformations that Ben had gained from Season 2 and onward through the original series. These alien transformations opened the proverbial door to a plethora of new possibilities to what other unique and powerful aliens could the Omnitrix possess and superpowers Ben could potentially use. Cannonbolt is an Arburian Pelorota from the long-destroyed planet Arburia. Cannonbolt is iconic for being the first alien that was unlocked in the Omnitrix and was the only alien being manually, albeit accidentally, unlocked by Gwen in the Big Tick Season 2 Episode 1. Cannonbolt is a hulking, broad-shouldered alien covered in natural, yellow armor plating on his back, shoulders, and the backs of his arms. He is mostly white with black on his upper half and has 4 claws on both of his hands, having a color scheme and claws similar to that of a panda. Cannonbolt is covered in fur across the thickest parts of his body, while every other part except for his elbows and knees is short fur. When Cannonbolt turns into a sphere, he rolls up into a ball, with his backplates and the plates on his hands covering him. His sphere form has semicircular stripes across his body, with black lines around the circular plates, and his side plates are the plates on his shoulders. It is described as a position similar to a roly-poly. In the original series, Cannonbolt had sharp teeth, yellow eyes, and wore the original Omnitrix symbol on his forehead. In Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, Cannonbolt's teeth became fuller and human-like, the black stripe on his chest was gone, his eyes were recolored green, and he wore the original Omnitrix/Ultimatrix symbol on his chest. In Omniverse, Cannonbolt regains his black stripe from the original series, which now goes down to his belly/chest. His eyes are no longer connected to his shoulders, his palms are now flat instead of bulging, the yellow bolts on his body are now hexagonal and there are 3 plates on his back instead of 2. 16-year-old Cannonbolt wears the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, while 11-year-old Cannonbolt wears the original Omnitrix symbol, which has been recolored green, on his forehead to reflect his original appearance. Arburia, as mentioned before, was destroyed by this giant tick-like alien planetary parasite that these 3 aliens worship like a god. Thankfully, Cannonbolt avenged his species by destroying the Great One from the inside out. Another interesting fact about Cannonbolt is that he was initially meant to be one of the original alien but was replaced by Diamond Head instead. He's also one of 5 aliens to have appeared in all the series of the classic continuity, among Diamond Head, Upchuck, Way Big, and Ghost Freak, and currently all series in the franchise including Diamond Head and Way Big. Arburia was once a peaceful world and the home planet of the civilized species of Torchigans, the Arburian Pelorotas. 1 week prior to the Big Tick, the Great One visited and destroyed Arburia. The cities on Arburia were connected by thousands of roller tunnel systems, like a hamster cage. With many resources and an ideal climate, the inhabitants of Arburia lived in harmony. Arburia was considered a vacation spot by many species, but was later destroyed by the Great One who visited. Cannonbolt has the ability to curl up and encage his plated shell around his body into a giant ball-like shape and roll along any surface, similarly to Sonic the Hedgehog, Samus Aran's Morph Ball, Choji Akimichi's Human Boulder Technique, Stitch, and A-Bomb from Hulk and the Agents of Smash. He becomes like a motorized wheel that can move at great speed and can increase his rotational momentum to slam into and/or run over enemies. In general, the Arburian Pelorota species mostly use this ability as a defense maneuver to protect themselves. However, Ben didn't know that upon transforming, and thus Cannonbolt is the only member of the Pelorota, at least in the Prime timeline, to have weaponized this defense mechanism. Cannonbolt's shell is virtually indestructible to almost anything, making him invulnerable both in and out of his sphere form. He can easily deflect laser beams and energy blasts back at his opponents. He is tough enough to withstand being in the vacuum of space and has survived the extreme heat of re-entering the Earth's atmosphere on 2 separate occasions, which is 3000 degrees F or 1650 degrees C, the first time resulting in a huge crater worth 32.145 tons of TNT, city block level. Similarly, Cannonbolt's shell is invulnerable to corrosive acids like the Great Ones, which dissolved a deep hole in the ground, molten lava, and radiation, as well as resisted extremely frigid environments like the cold side of Mc-Delta. Cannonbolt can also withstand plasma generated by Ball Weevil and his species, and he's capable of withstanding the vacuum of space, but he still needs to breathe. Without an oxygen supply, Cannonbolt is limited to holding his breath. In sphere form, Cannonbolt can roll along any surface thanks to chemicals in his exoplates that drastically reduce his friction, allowing him to move at great speeds and can increase his rotational momentum almost endlessly, thus allowing him to be invulnerable during motion and strike with tremendous colliding force. Cannonbolt can ricochet and bounce off most surfaces like a pinball while suffering little to no loss in momentum. Despite not being able to see when curled, Cannonbolt can maneuver around his surroundings with ease thanks to the short fur on his body registering vibrations in air and motion around, and combined with his excellent hearing, Cannonbolt has something akin to echolocation, giving him eyeless vision like Wildmutt. Cannonbolt can house people and fairly large objects within his ball form and provide them with the same level of protection he has. He can also be empowered by shock squash-generated electricity, which vastly increases his power and momentum in his ball, enough to knock Vilgax across several miles at high speeds from just a single hit. Cannonbolt gets a full 7 out of 7 in raw power and in durability, and also a 5 out of 7 in versatility. Cannonbolt possesses enhanced strength, being able to fight on par with enemies about his size, like when he managed to take down Kevin 11, whom easily overpowered 10-year-old Forearms, and he fought Onimo and 2 of his giant mutant frogs, and fought with Fistina while she used the Golden Fist. He can also break free from traps made of Lepidopteran slime. Cannonbolt also managed to defeat the Great One by bouncing around and destroying its body from the inside out, while the 10 previous aliens at that time failed. So Cannonbolt has a 6 out of 7 in strength. In speed, Cannonbolt gets a 5 out of 7, as he managed to destroy all the Great One's organs within a minute given how massive it is. He's also fast enough to keep up and even outpace speeding cars. Like XLR-8, he can roll up walls and across large bodies of water. Cannonbolt is even capable of generating a fierce tornado by spinning. Despite his top-heavy body, Cannonbolt does have impressive enhanced reflexes, dexterity, and balance, allowing him to quickly change in and out of ball form to suit his immediate needs, and he possesses enough dexterity to grab small objects with relative ease and has a strong grip. Cannonbolt has enhanced reflexes that are at a level comparable to Kinoceleron's, like when his reboot counterpart was able to catch Rush's fist before he could even punch him, and it's very likely Rush could dodge lightning like XLR-8. Cannonbolt can even increase his agility by quickly opening up and closing his ball shape while airborne. This can also create powerful shockwaves. Cannonbolt possesses enhanced digging, as seen when he quickly tunneled underground in his sphere form before jumping out to attack future Vilgax. Cannonbolt's stomach is big enough for him to eat big portions of food. When angry, Cannonbolt's scream can be very loud and can be heard from a distance. When falling from a certain height, Cannonbolt can make big splashes in large bodies of water. Cannonbolt may be a powerful alien, but he still has weaknesses, such as he's subjected to the physical laws of reflection and conservation of momentum whenever he rolls in his ball form. That means that he will have difficulty stopping or controlling his direction if he picks up too much speed. And due to his top-heavy bipedal form, Cannonbolt is very unbalanced and quite clumsy, as you'd expect of him if he's unfocused. This is because his species, the Arburian Pelorotas, have evolved to travel by spinning, not walking, but he can still use his sphere form to enhance his agility. Similar to Forearms, Cannonbolt's large body is ill-suited to move in small spaces, like inside the proto-truck. Also, Cannonbolt can be affected by any surface he rolls on, such as being trapped by strong adhesives such as those used by the Stalker, and sandy area as his heavy body sink into it. He can't move on slippery surfaces like ice and mud. While Cannonbolt's shell can easily resist the extreme heat of re-entering Earth's atmosphere, he can still feel a mild amount pain from the force of the impact. Also, Cannonbolt's not completely heat-proof, as his skin was burned his hands when he tried to hold the container of Element X. Despite his mobile invulnerability, Cannonbolt can be held in place by opponent with as much strength as a Chimera Sui Generis like Vilgax. Cannonbolt can be incapacitated by electricity like when he was struck by Victor, and Cannonbolt can be controlled by Vladats via their corruptura if he's in his uncurled form. Cannonbolt can also emit a sort of odor, which people housed in his ball form find repulsive, but that's more of their problem than his. Cannonbolt can be too heavy to stand on certain things that are unstable, such as a diving board. There is a limit to Cannonbolt's durability and stamina, as a punch from a Celestialcipian was able to knock the wind out of him. In terms of potential, Cannonbolt, I'm afraid, is rather limited, as what you see is what you get with this alien. However, his great utility cannot be ignored, as while Cannonbolt has only two fairly obvious abilities, it goes without saying that he is ridiculously broken. His powers can be used for both offense and defense simultaneously, and his carapace can tank far greater damage than most of the other Omnitrix aliens can deliver as well as take. Combined with his weight and speed, Cannonbolt is a living locomotive who can deliver massive destructive impacts. Similarly to XLR-8, once Cannonbolt gains massive enough momentum, he could potentially deliver the destructive on a massive scale in just one hit. Not to mention, Cannonbolt can use his carapace to protect civilians and allies like a nigh-indestructible shield. So Cannonbolt gets a 3 out of 7 in potential. Cannonbolt has been used 50 times in the classic continuity and has 32 victories. So Cannonbolt has a win percentage of a 5 out of 7. Final thoughts. Cannonbolt's a nearly unstoppable juggernaut with a perfect mix of offense and defense capabilities, and is a great choice for almost any combat situation, and his wins outweighs his loses. So, Cannonbolt has a total score of 41 out of 49, as a 6C island-level alien with a rank of A-class. Wildvine is the first plant-based alien in the series. His species are the Floruna from the jungle planet Flores Verdance. Wildvine was unlocked in the episode Camp Fear, Season 3 Episode 2. Wildvine is a humanoid plant with one eye in the middle of his face, 5 vine-like legs, 4 long fingers on his hands, flytrap-shaped flaps with teeth covering his head, and pods on his back that he can use as explosives or smoke bombs. In the original series, Wildvine had green skin, green teeth, 5 legs, the eye on his head was blue, and he had secondary eyes of the same color on each of his shoulders. He wore the original Omnitrix symbol on his chest. In Ultimate Alien, Wildvine looked mostly the same as before, except his skin was recolored brownish-green, his flytrap teeth were recolored black, and his primary eye, secondary eyes, and Ultimatrix symbol were all recolored green. In Omniverse, Wildvine regains the green skin color from the original series. He now has only 4 legs, his teeth were recolored white, and his fingers are much shorter and thicker. The secondary eyes on his shoulders are replaced with patches of light green similar to those on his hands. He also now has a blue tongue, his teeth are neater, and his chin and flytrap teeth are bigger. 16-year-old Wildvine wears the Omnitrix symbol on a green and white belt. I greatly dislike his reboot design, as he has a generic human shape lacking his uniqueness, as unlike Stingfly's reboot design, I will not and possibly never warm up to this. Floruna were said to be savage by nature, and have little intelligence other than pure instinct. This behavior was retconned in Omniverse, or at least shown not the absolute rule, as Pax is an example of a very social and intelligent Floruna. A tribe of Floruna was seen on Xenon, gathered in a garden nest of vines, infesting the entrance of Azimuth's compound. If they detected any intruders wandering inside their nest, the Floruna would collectively and indiscriminately attack them, and would not stop until at least one member of the invading party was captured. This prisoner would be brought to the tribe's leader as a meal offering. Just like real-life plants, Floruanas are autotrophic beings, meaning that they eat through photosynthesis, and they need steady exposure to sun and water in order to thrive. They also have the capacity to consume humans and potentially meat and other beings. Flores Verdance is a lush green forest planet, covered in trees. There are some trees the size of skyscrapers that dwarf any other life for miles around. Due to the 3 suns that orbit this planet, Flores Verdance's weather cycle changes rapidly and life spans cycle seasonally. Wildvine possesses chlorokinesis, which allows him to telepathically interface with and manipulate the growth of all plant life, While not as impressive compared to Swampfire, his reboot counterpart created a giant bush to hide the Bobgoblins, giant leaves on his vines to dig up the ground, and created increasing tree pillars as he walked. And also Kevin's Omniverse flashback mutation when he trapped the Tennysons and his own teammates in thick vines, and negative Wildvine when he used chlorokinesis to wrap several people onto tables. Wildvine is able to use this telepathic connection to communicate with sentient plants. Like a real plant, Wildvine can grow, alter and stretch out his body, but unlike a plant he can retract his body at will. Wildvine is extremely flexible due to his plant-like body that he can grow and extend his arms, legs, and fingers into prehensile vine-like tentacles to grab and restrain others, and he can squish said vines through the smallest of tight spaces rather easily. Wildvine is also capable of making whips by extruding tendrils out of the palms of his hands as demonstrated by feedback. Wildvine can grow roots that allow him to cling to most surfaces and grant him enhanced sturdiness. Wildvine is able to close his flytrap to give him some degree of protection as seen during his fight with the werewolf when he dragged him underground, and he can enlarge his flytrap to a size that can fit an entire person and can also trap people by closing his flytrap, as demonstrated by the Floruna on Xenon. The jagged teeth of Wildvine's flytrap may also be used to inflict a powerful biting force. Wildvine can use his body alteration capabilities to grow long sharp thorns on any part of his body. These thorns possess great cutting power, allowing him to slice through strong materials and knock down enemies akin to XLR-8's claws, and Wildvine can also shoot these thorns from his hands as projectiles at his foes. Wildvine can even fuse himself to any terrestrial plant life, as demonstrated when he merged with an earth tree to spy on Max and his ex Xylene. In the same scene, Wildvine can also change his body color in order to camouflage to his environment, also demonstrated by the Floruna on Xenon. I find Wildvine's ability to merge with plant life very interesting because of its potential applications, which I will explain later. Wildvine can grow black-colored fruit-like pods on his back that contain various substances, both lethal and non-lethal, allowing Wildvine to throw them as explosive projectiles for long-range attacks, which are far more powerful than ordinary grenades and dynamite, or they can act like smoke bombs to create a smoke screen to blind his enemy and as an escape technique. Wildvine's pods can also grow vines to ensnare people, and he can also use them to tame grackleflints as demonstrated by Pax. Wildvine is immune to the effects of gases like flame retardant, and he is capable of being immune to Avladit's Corrupturus if he exerts enough willpower, which Ben has a lot of. In the same manner, Wildvine is also immune to hypnotism. In terms of raw power, Wildvine wouldn't be among the strongest of the classic additional aliens, so his overall power level is a 4 out of 7. However, he is defiantly among the most versatile, as he possesses a host variety of abilities and techniques in his arsenal, giving multiple uses, giving him a full 7 out of 7 in versatility. Despite looking gangly and flimsy, Wildvine is actually quite strong. His vines can not only support his own body, but he can also carry adult-sized humans and lift 2 large weights. Wildvine can even increase their size to further increase their strength. Wildvine's other strength feats including stopping a cargo lift from falling on Max and Gwen when he was 11 years old and hold it for a short time, which likely weighed nearly 10 to 15 tons. He was also able to trap the werewolf in his tendrils and can easily break solid rocks with his bare hands, and his vines were strong enough to lift Vilgax and slam him onto the surface of his ship and restrain Frankenstrike. So Wildvine gets a 5 out of 7 in strength. Wildvine can also use his vine's tentacles to swing around like Tarzan with great agility and skill, and can spin in the air to disperse his fruit bombs, and throw them into the air. His female counterpart used by Gwen 10 was able to dodge a blast of lightning, showing Wildvine has greatly enhanced reflexes and can jump at high degrees. Wildvine can also quickly tunnel underground, capable of breaking through solid ground like Wildmutt. So overall, Wildvine gets a 4 out of 7 in speed. Wildvine also gets a 3 out of 7 in durability, as it's not too difficult to damage his body, but thankfully he has his regeneration to compensate. Wildvine possesses highly advanced high-speed healing factor, enables him to regenerate his body if any part of it gets damaged, including his head as demonstrated by Pax. As such, if ammunition fire completely destroys his body, he can pull himself together and regrow his body in a matter of seconds. Wildvine's most significant weakness is that he's extremely sensitive to fire and sub-zero colds due to his plant-based nature. Without his secondary eyes providing him with a source of chlorophyll and regular sunlight, he will quickly dry up, wilt, and perish. Wildvine's vines can get tangled and can also get tangled in his own vines. If Wildvine stretches himself too much, his arms will stay stretched and unable to shorten for a while. Wildvine has a high weakness against electricity, such as that generated by an ampere. Wildvine's vines are not indestructible, as they are only resistant to a certain degree and can be broken apart by species with as much or more strength than a tetrament. Wildvine's vast array of abilities have a lot of potential behind them if given more screen time and creativity. His body alteration could allow him to create more organic constructs made out of plant matter like upgrade and blocks, such as whips, tendrils, pillars, walls, platforms, vines and more flytraps. As a plant, Wildvine emits almost no thermal energy and is untrackable on infrared cameras. Wildvine's high-speed digging can be used to create deep tunnels large enough for foes to fall in and for allies to use as an escape or to infiltrate buildings. What's most interesting is Wildvine's ability to merge with any floral life form. This could grant him access to its DNA and increases his overall biomass in the process, making him stronger and more durable and increasing his size. It could also increase his chlorokinesis by manipulating the plant life as a physical extension of his body. And theoretically, Wildvine might gain extra abilities based on whatever plant he merges with, like a tree giving him enhanced durability due to its barky skin, underwater survivability from seaweed, desert adaptation from cactuses, and many others from alien plants on other planets. In the case of the latter, Wildvine might even merge with other plant-based aliens like methanosians or species that Plant Apocalypse belongs to, gaining all of their abilities. So, Wildvine has an overall potential rating of 7 out of 7. Wildvine has been used 20 times and has had 18 victories, gaining a win rate percentage of a 7 out of 7. Final thoughts. While Wildvine may not be as powerful as Swampfire, he does have his own unique abilities that make him stand out a lot. Wildvine's overall powers make him akin to an ambush predator, from his abilities to effortlessly dig through the ground, camouflage and merge with plant life, to his flytrap with razor-sharp teeth, thorns and explosive black pods for mid to long-range attacks. Wildvine is an alien that can essentially manipulate and adapt to nearly any environment, except obviously frigid ones. So Wildvine gets a total score of 37 out of 49, making him a 7B city-level alien ranked C-class. Thank you for watching my video. I promise I'll upload a new one detailing the future aliens next year. And also watch out for my posts as I show 5 potential new video ideas. Like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see them. I'm MK Toons, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.